Ukraine, because of the restrictions the West kept putting on them, have now started an industry that is growing in capability and in capacity, and they're firing their own indigenous stuff, which no one else has control over, into Russia. And because they don't have so many, they are fighting and very, I think, sophisticated, what we call counterforce fight.
The US response, Donald Trump posting on Truth Social, what's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. Do you have any idea whether there's going to be, or what that meant, or whether there's going to be a more robust response from the US on this?
We need to back up just a little bit. When Russia struck the U.S. Business in Ukraine, that was no mistake either. That was sort of in the face of our president. When Russia struck that, we have given now Ukraine over 3,000 long range surface to surface missiles. They're called ERAMs, all capitals ERAM, Now, these are not big like ATACMS class missiles, but they are very precise. They have a nice long range, and they have a warhead that can do some real damage. So when Russia struck this American business in Ukraine, the president actually responded with sending new capability to Ukraine. Now we have Mr. Putin one more time in the face of our president and the West saying, we're going to fly through your airspace when we attack people. I think more is called for. I really believe more is called for. There are a couple of really good articles out there about some of the options. Things I really like is completely take the shackles off of Ukraine in respect to attacking deeply in Russia. As you know, the United States and the West, to some degree, have built a sanctuary for Russia. We've said, don't use our kit to attack into Russia. Although Russia is sending tens of thousands of missiles from all directions attacking Ukraine, we've told Ukraine, you can't use our kit to fire back. Time to eliminate that horrible, unthought policy and allow Ukraine to strike and eliminate this enabling device of building sanctuary for Russia. We should never be in that business. Never should we sanctuary for Russia.
And you have been an advocate of that for a long time, haven't you? And for the last month, we've seen Ukraine able to mount these repeated attacks on the same targets, hitting Russia's oil and gas refineries and infrastructure. And not only is it affecting fuel supply to the general public, but now facilities that supply fuel to Russian troops. How does Ukraine build this? And is it doing so into an effective strategy, do you think?
Well, first and foremost, Ukraine, because of the restrictions the West kept putting on them, have now started an industry that is growing in capability and in capacity, and they're firing their own indigenous stuff, which no one else has control over, into Russia. And because they don't have so many, they are fighting and very, I think, sophisticated, what we call counterforce fight. Counterforce means that Ukraine is targeting specific military targets like petrochemicals that would affect the military capability. And just by the flip side, we all see that Mr. Putin is fighting a countervalue fight, which means that the vast, let me say it one more time, vast preponderance of the targets Russia are hitting are civilian targets. They're trying to destroy the idea of Ukraine and destroy the idea of the Ukrainian people.
You were saying earlier about US reaction, and we're still waiting to find out whether Donald Trump and this EU delegation that was heading out to Washington this week are going to come up with any kind of more agreement on tougher sanctions against Russia. I'm just wondering, whether you expect that to happen, and if not, the kind of preparations you see Ukraine making for a long war, and if those strikes that we're talking about against oil refineries deep into Russia, it is a sign that they really believe they've got to be in it for the long haul.
Please, Kate, don't be angry at me, but I think they're already in a long war. I hear these people talk about this war is 3.5 years long. They really do not understand. This war is 11 years long. We had the first invasion of Crimea. Then we had the invasion of Lugansk, Donetsk, and the Donbass region. Then we had everybody thought the war was over, but we had a warm line of contact where Russians and Ukrainians were dying almost every day along that line of contact. And then we went into I think, the third phase of this 11-year long war when they did the massive attack into Ukraine. And so Ukraine is already trying to figure out how to fight a long war. This is an existential war. And as I said before, Mr. Putin is not terribly worried about beating the Ukrainian military. He's trying to break the will of the people. He's trying to destroy Ukraine, and he's trying to convince Europe that he's going to fight longer than Europe will fight, so that Europe will give up and give him what he wants. And so Ukraine, I think, is already and is now getting much better at preparing for taking the fight to Russia. How many missiles fall on the capital of Kyiv every night now? If that many missiles were falling on Moscow every night, this war would take a very different turn.
And Ukraine preparing to take and continue to take the fight to Russia. Russia appears to be doing the same in the sense that its main military intelligence directorate says Ukraine's does, sorry, I'm going to say that again. Ukraine building up and its capabilities, it's sustained a long fight into Russia. Russia appears to be doing the same. Ukraine's main military intelligence directorate says Russia is expanding its defense industrial base, ramping up its missile and drone production, and locating much of its defense enterprises. Were you waggling your finger? Go on.
So let's also review a few things. They make all of these grand pronunciations, but Russia is having a massive manpower problem. Remember, they had to ask for 30,000 North Koreans to come to help them retake sovereign Russian land in the Kursk Oblast. Let's say that one more time. Russia had to have help to retake sovereign Russian land. Now Russia's having trouble manning its defense industries. They've got almost 30,000 North Koreans working in almost slave labor conditions in Russian factories now because they don't have the manpower to man them themselves. So Russia's trying to put this big face up that we're building new weapons, we're building lots of weapons, we're expanding our manpower, we're doing all this stuff. The reality is they have a huge manpower problem, and it's getting worse.
So how long do you think President Putin can sustain this war?
As long as he believes he's going to win, he will fight. And as long as he believes and convince the Russian people that they're going to win, he's going to fight. And that's why I've been laughed at and scoffed at a little bit, because I've said one of the first things the West has to do is what Mr. Putin does all the time. The West, senior leaders of the West, and I think that includes the American president, they have to go out loud and proud publicly in a declaratory manner and say, Mr. Putin, you will not win this war. We will ensure you do not win this war. That's the start, because he's got the Russian people have to get the message that the West is now united in this guarantee. And then we have to put an exclamation point on those very loud, proud, public declaratory policies by putting military might in the hands of the Ukrainians to start making Russia pay. And Ukraine is doing that now. And the cost of gas and oil and the loss of revenue to the government is starting to show that.
So when President Zelensky said that President Putin, in a meeting with Steve Witkoff, the US envoy, had told him that they planned and they were going to take Donbass by the end of the year, what's President Zelensky's motivation for expressing that publicly?
Well, I think President Zelensky is trying to out what he believes is a fact and what I believe is a fact, and that is Mr. Putin has never been a partner in peace for Ukraine. Mr. Putin is not now a partner in peace for Ukraine, and Mr. Putin will never be a partner in peace for Ukraine. But Mr. Putin keeps stringing along Western leaders and, frankly, my president by sort of big teaser out there. Yeah, we'll work out a peace deal, but I need a few more months to pound Ukraine, and we'll work it out. And I think that Mr. Zelensky is trying to point out to the West what most of us already know, and that is Mr. Putin has absolutely zero intention of ever negotiating a peace for Ukraine. Zero.
You've been watching Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Chabot. If you'd like to be the first to get exclusive content, you can sign up for membership with the link below. You can also listen to Times Radio for the latest news or read it on thetimes.com.